Welcome to our channel, our Scientology stories. My name is Mark Fisher, and I'm here with my co-host,
Janis Gillham Grady. G'day, everybody.
Hi, Janis. How you doing today?
I'm good, Mark. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Tell everybody what this video is going to be about.
Yeah, this one, I'm really excited about this one because this is about, well, a lot of you probably know my mother started Celebrity Centre back in, probably July 1969. And our guest today is someone who I had known of for 54 years. As a young teenager, I used to have his picture on my cabin wall. And I'd not met him until just last August, though we'd known of each other for 54 years. So, and this gentleman was one of the part-time original staff of the original Celebrity Centre. So let me introduce Robbie Levin.
Hi, Robbie. Hi. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. So this will be fun. Robbie was there when, right from the beginning. So let's start first and we'll find out who Robbie is and how he ended up in Los Angeles to start working with my mother.
So I was playing rock and roll at the time, had a band called People. And in April of 1968, we were recording with Capitol Records, and we had a song that we'd recorded called I Love You. It was starting to climb the charts. We had gotten into Scientology, or introduced into Scientology, the end of February of 1968. And when the record started climbing the national charts, we were feverishly doing our grades and our our early training at the Santa Clara mission, and preparing to go on the road. At the time I was 19 years old, and so we were playing in the Bay Area, and we were doing some local touring, but we were planning to do a national tour that summer after the record became a big hit. The whole band was in Scientology except for the singers in the band. We had two lead singers, and we did our first tour in the summer of '68 with just one of the singers, because we were brainwashed to the point at that time that we thought one of the singers was a suppressive person. So
here's the picture. Is this a picture of your group?
Right? Yeah, this is a picture after we had gotten rid of the two lead singers, and that's me with the white top on. Albert Ribisi on my right, who's Giovanni's dad, and Albert and I grew up together, went to grammar school together. John Tristeo.
He's with the glasses, right?
Yeah. And then John Tristeo on my left, who replaced the singer that we had gotten rid of. Denny Fridkin's in the back with his drummer, and then my brother Geoff is on the far right of the photo. And that was the band that actually ended up joining the Sea Org, which is a story for a little bit later.
Now, how did you all, were you all high school friends, or how did you all form together?
No, so Albert and I, who were in grammar school together, we were actually, both of us were captains on the traffic squad together when we were in the 6th grade. we were pretty close, and we only lived a few blocks away. But when I got into high school, Albert went to Catholic high school and was playing music, and because Albert originally was playing accordion, and then my brother and I got into folk music, bluegrass, and then that morphed into rock and roll when all the San Francisco Bay Area bands were starting to form. Most of them, like the Dead and the Airplane, they were all folk musicians and bluegrass musicians. Garcia actually, his first band, the Black Mountain Boys, my brother was a bass player in that band. And so Albert and I just started playing a little bit of music, and then my brother came over, and then we decided to put a band together. And that was probably early 1965 when that happened. And so by the time 68 came along and we were introduced to Scientology, the band was quite popular and in the San Francisco Bay Area, and everybody knew us, and we were performing constantly.
Well, how did you get then in Scientology? Like, what was the introduction? How, you know?
We were getting tired of drugs, which is one of the things that gets covered in our documentary film, and we were looking for something else, and we were actually just getting ready to go up to Oakland to see Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and get indoctrinated into transcendental meditation and receive our mantras. And we were rehearsing one day, and Albert had stumbled upon the Santa Clara mission. And so Albert walks into the garage where we're rehearsing in the garage, and he says, I've just found this thing called Scientology, and I'm going to be able to make boats disappear. So he was enthralled with all the operating Thetan abilities, and we went down to the mission. Albert, my brother and I and Denny went down to the mission, and we started training. We did the communications course like that weekend. And we were just, beyond brainwashed instantly. Complete devotee.
Do you remember who owned the mission at that time? Do you remember who?
Kay Romeo. And Kay is in that original picture of the Scientology staff, the one with my brother and Yvonne and Dale Benson, which I think you have that photo.
We'll show it in a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. Kay and her son were they moved to Los Angeles kind of the same time we did. And they were on staff at Celebrity Centre as well. But Kay was there, and then Eddie and Sherry Wooderson from New Zealand came right about the time that we got in. And they had both just completed the original Class 8 course.
Ah.
And so we had 2 Class 8s that were auditing us, which was pretty interesting for a mission because, the original course that Hubbard taught had just been completed, like literally weeks before they came. And I think Yvonne was on that course as well, was on the original.
Yes, she was on the Royal Scotsman in Corfu. And here's a photo of few of them that the Class 8s that had graduated, and they were being sent out to different areas. My mother's there in the white dress with the necklace on, the beads around her neck. This was taken in Athens on the way back, and my mom was going to AOLA at the time, Advanced Organization in Los Angeles.
Right, and that would have been the summer of 1968.
Yes.
Yeah. And just so our viewers know, a Class 8 is like at that time was the highest training level you could go to as an auditor, as a Scientology processor, right? Yeah. Right, Janis? That was the highest level.
Right.
At that time, right.
And everyone on that course was taught directly by Hubbard himself. He would go down to the dining room on the Royal Scotsman. It was all set up with tables and chairs, for him to lecture to the Class 8 auditors. And he would pound the table as he's trying to get points across to them. And so he personally trained them, and he case supervised all their sessions before they graduated as Class 8 auditors.
Yeah, and you might know more about this than I do, but my understanding of the original Class 8 course was they had taken people from different orgs and missions, public, not Sea Org, non-Sea Org members, and they had 2 Class 8 courses that Hubbard taught both of them. One was for the missionaries and org members, and the other one was for the Sea Org auditors, because my first wife Snooky was on the original Class 8, and 2 of our best friends, Artie Marin, Mary Marin, were also on that Class 8 course. And I think one of the other Sea Org members on the Sea Org Class 8 course was Craig DeFan. I don't know if you remember Craig.
Yeah, I remember Craig. I remember Snooki as well.
Yeah. And so so Snooki told me all about the way that the courses were run. And I don't know if they were just simultaneous in different rooms. I'm not really sure. Or if they were all attending together, but separate. Together but separate. There was some separation.
Yeah.
Because Snooki was on staff at the in St. Hill. That's where she came from. She was an auditor at St. Hill when she went over there. So anyway.
And Alan and Virginia Capula were there as well, and they were mission holders at Reno at the time.
Right, I remember them as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a pretty prestigious group of people. Snooki claims to be the only one between the Sea Org members and the public staff that were taking this Class 8 course, the only one that didn't get thrown overboard.
Oh, she didn't?
No, she never got.
I remember watching my mother get thrown overboard.
Yeah. I think she was so teeny and so young at the time. I think Hubbard had some kind of a soft spot for her. I'm not sure, because she looked like a little kid.
Well, so then Janis, this is your mother, right? Yvonne Gillham?
Yes, that's Yvonne Gillham, Yvonne Jentzsch. And
right.
she went to the Advanced Org Los Angeles and was actually there as the commanding officer for a while, and was also as the case supervisor, and she would also audit some.
Yeah. So there's so when we were on the road, I was preparing to go to St. Hill. I was gonna take our first break, and I remember because it was August. It was August of 1968, early August, and we were in Florida, and we had another week left on our on that particular tour that we were doing with the Who, because we did a whole summer tour where we opened for the Who, and I had purchased a ticket to St. Hill. And I had prepaid for my power auditing, because in the U.S. all you could do is go up to grade 4. That's as high as you could go. And if you wanted to get power, or R6EW or clearing, you had to go to St. Hill. And I remember, because while I was in Florida, I think we were either in Miami or we might have been in Jacksonville, and we got a phone call. I got a phone call. And I can't remember who it was that called me, but they said, an AO is opening up in Los Angeles next week or this week. It just opened. So I canceled my trip to St. Hill, and I went directly from Florida to Los Angeles. And I think I was there. They had been open maybe a week, 10 days. The AO had been. And I walked in, and the first person I met was Kimma, because she was at the front desk. And
that'd be Kimma Douglas.
Yep, Kimma Douglas. And then Ira Chaliff was there, and Sally was there, and Craig DeFan was there, CSing. Yvonne was there as CO. I'm trying to remember who some of the other people were that were there, but so I started.
Where was it located then? Where was it at?
I can't remember the name of the street, but the picture that you have shows.
Is it here?
Yeah, that's
that
it.
one.
That's the front. That's the front of the original AO, and it's interesting. Yeah, there's God, I can't remember the names of all those people.
Well, I know some of them. Well, that's Albert, Al Rabisi in the front left, right? And Geoff on the front right.
Right. And
standing right behind Geoff, that's Sue Pomeroy.
Yep, that's Sue Pomeroy. And then the guy to her left is I'm trying to remember his name. Can't remember his name. But I ended up knowing all those people quite well.
Right.
Well, that's Iris in the back.
Yeah, but if I go from you're next to Sue. You're between Sue and my mother.
Yep.
And then behind my mom, that's Louise Kelly.
That's right.
Isn't it?
Yeah. And then behind John Tristeo, was that guy named Spence something?
Spence.
Who's in the V-neck thing in the front?
That's our drummer, Denny.
Oh,
okay.
Denny Fridkin.
And if you go from you, Robbie,
go ahead,
if you go from you, Robbie, not directly behind you, but one more up, that's Sally Shaloff, Ira's wife.
That's right. That's Ira's wife. And then Ira's on her left. There's Ira on her left.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Now they're wearing this is uniforms that they had at the time with the hard hats and everything.
The goofiest uniforms.
They would. Notice my mother's wearing an officer's uniform. I think she never wore that boiler suit. She hated that.
No, she never did. She always had on her officer's uniform.
Janis, whose idea was it to have those uniforms?
That was L. Ron Hubbard's idea. He's the one who said have them wear they were to wear white boiler suits, and they were supposed to have silver belts and silver boots and these hard hats. And it was supposed to look like loyal officers on the track, on the whole track.
Yeah. And just so our viewers know, advanced organization, that's where you go to do your operating thetan, your upper levels, and also clearing at the time. To become a clear, you had to go to the advanced organization. So that's what that was. So it must have been a big deal opening up in Los Angeles, right, Robbie?
Yeah. And like I said, I was there right at the very beginning. It was quite interesting. Yvonne and I met and had instant rapport.
I was going to ask, what was it like when you first met her?
We just something clicked. I mean, I was 19 years old at the time, and something just clicked with us. One of those whole track connections, and we became friendly instantly, and I was there every day because I did my power, took a couple days to do my power. And then grade 6 took a few days to do grade 6. And then I got onto clearing. And back then clearing didn't happen overnight. You were auditing 8 hours a day for weeks. And so I think I was probably auditing 50, 60 hours a week on the clearing course. And I think I tested to clear after, I think I was somewhere around 115, 120 hours.
Wow.
And I tested to clear. I still have my original clear bracelet, and my clear number was 1056.
I know my clear number is 9,766, 9766.
Yeah.
Same.
And so I was, and I do believe I was in the first 10 people that went clear in Los Angeles. I just don't remember what my LA clear number was, because at that time we were counting the number of people that were going clear in the United States, in Los Angeles.
Right.
And so it was very early on, and I think it was October 14th, if I'm not mistaken, of 1968. Yeah, October 1968. Wow. And so the whole time that I was doing my clearing and through OT6, Yvonne was there as the CEO of the AO at that time, and again we were hanging out, and we would go to dinner. Probably, I don't know, whenever I was there, we would go to dinner probably sometimes 3-4 days a week, and she would break away and we'd go out to eat a lot, and it was nice to see her take a break, because I don't know that she ever slept. She was. Now,
Robbie, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question for our viewers' sake. Can you describe what Yvonne's personality was like and what it was like being around her? Because I only met her one time, but she was very warm. You know what I mean? And she was very, you know what I mean, very welcoming when I was around her.
I missed that because my computer froze for a second.
Oh, okay. I just said, can you describe for our viewers what it was like being around Janis's mother, Yvonne? What was she like personality-wise?
She was an anomaly in Scientology. She was like, she was more, her personality, and I don't know if you've ever met a real Tibetan Buddhist Rinpoche or a Tibetan Buddhist Lama.
No.
That's what Yvonne was like. She exuded so much love, unconditional love to people with no interruptions and no barriers. She was completely open, where everybody else was playing the game of, you remember the term HC?
Yeah.
Infinite control. And Yvonne was the opposite of that. She was, when Hubbard would bloviate about, granting beingness to other people and not be able to display it because he was such a maniac, Yvonne actually portrayed what people really believed an operating thetan should be like. And I'm not talking about the militant people in Scientology, the Clarice Jacksons and the Otto Schuttes, those people that were so militant and just you couldn't believe that they were even Scientologists because they were like the Gestapo. Yvonne was the antithesis, and I never. The only people that didn't like Yvonne were people like Clarice Jackson, because they just blew away their game. She blew away their game,
Yeah.
So extremely influential in a lot of people's lives, because
absolutely
people didn't get love in Scientology. They didn't really experience that. They just
that's Robbie, that's one of my feelings after I left Scientology. My father had gone up the OT levels, the old OT7 and all that, and then he left, right? And then we were disconnected for a while. But when we got back together, he said, the concept that's missing in Scientology was love, and he goes, they don't talk about love. It's all affinity or ARC and all that. And he goes, but if you really understand the concept of love, it was missing there. And I completely agree.
Yeah, totally missing, with the exception of Yvonne.
Yeah. Well, individuals would have it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Janis, so we go on here to how she was at AOLA for a little while, and then this is the old Celebrity Center, right?
Yeah. Now, go ahead, Robbie.
Well, it was interesting because when she was at commanding officer at the AO, she had this concept about how to handle celebrities and what to do with celebrities and how to treat them and how to have them as great kind of images of Scientology, but not nefariously like Hubbard, because Hubbard was fixated on having celebrities so that you could disseminate Scientology more easily, and Yvonne was more about catering to the celebrities and nurturing the celebrities. And we talked about that at length. And when we were playing, because we played at a lot of different Scientology events, or we played at every Scientology event, I think. And everybody in Scientology, it was such a small community in Los Angeles at that time, everybody knew the band quite well. So she thought having a place, a safe space to bring artists, musicians, actors, singers into would just really be the best thing that she could do. And she really felt that she could do it. She felt that she could be connected because she did communicate so well with people in the arts. So that's how we were involved in Celebrity Center at the beginning. And it was around that time in 1969 that Yvonne and I were talking about my idea, which was to have the band people join the Sea Org. And it had never been done before. And we were at dinner one time, just Yvonne and I were eating, and I said, you think it'd be possible for us to join the Sea Org? Because I was so dedicated to Scientology and still do our music. And she said, why don't you just write Ron? It was her. She said, write Ron a letter and see what he says. So I did. I wrote him a letter, and I got a handwritten letter back from him. It was not typed by his aides or anything. It was
Right.
the whole letter was in his handwriting, which of course, being on the OT levels, we certainly could recognize his handwriting because,
Right.
back all those levels, everything was done by hand. And he wrote back and said, I think it's a great idea. Work out the details with Yvonne and do it. So we did. And we joined. We all signed our billion-year contract. And then shortly after that, we went to the ship. And that's why on all those OODs from, OTL, which was the very beginning of Scientology Celebrity Centre, we were included because we were actually in the Sea Org at that time. So if you look at the early OODs, it's like, the very first one's like 2 staff, couple of kids, and people.
Right. And let me just explain to the viewers that the OODs that Robbie's talking about means orders of the day. And Robbie had sent me the original orders of the day of Celebrity Centre from July 1969, which shows 1 staff member full-time, which is her, my mother, and then 2, I think it was 2 or 3 part-time, which would have been Robbie and Geoff and Al Rabisi.
Oh, no, it was Joyce.
No?
No, it
was Joyce.
It was
Joyce
Joyce
was
and
part-time?
well, it was a couple other people. And then it says 10, if you look at those orders of the day.
Oh, the volunteers.
The volunteers, and then it says 10 people. And the 10 people, what that meant was the band, the entourage wives that had joined the Sea Org, and our road managers who had joined the Sea Org. And that was the 10 of us had joined the Sea Org. And so when it says 10 people on those original orders of the day, that meant us. That was us. And then later on in a few of the orders a day, a couple of weeks later, they talk about us. We went off to our training, and we trained on the Aries and Neptune, which were 2 smaller aviation rescue boats. One was 65 feet and one was 85 feet. And we were the crew. Alan Long was on one of the boats as a captain, and Larry Kriegler was on the other boat as the other captain. And it was really fun. That was great because Alan Long and Larry Kriegler, they were just renegade Scientologists. They couldn't care less about what was going on in Scientology. They were just all about their boats. And,
So you all were Sea Org members and also still a band.
Yeah,
playing music.
It was called Project People, and we were the first Sea Org members that actually were working in the field and doing our profession. And what our job was to continue performing and disseminate Scientology. And so we would go on the road. We'd have tons of books with us, and I was a spokesman for the band on stage, so I was the one that talked to the audience, and we would capture our audience, and they'd go nuts. And then towards the end of our show, I'd mention Scientology to thousands and thousands of people. And so unfortunately, I was responsible for getting a lot of people into Scientology. I don't feel
Robbie, let me ask you a question. You'd mentioned earlier you guys were touring with The Who. Were there other big name groups and stuff that you guys went out on tour with that people would know?
Well, we with The Who, it was a complete summer tour. It was The Who, and we did one with the Trogs, and Wild Thing. Remember that song?
Yeah.
Who doesn't? And then we would do concerts in and out where we would play with all different kinds of bands. And back in the 60s, I don't know if there's anybody we didn't play with other than we didn't play with the Beatles because they always had their own opening act. And we didn't play with the Stones because they also had their own opening act. But pretty much everyone else in the 60s, I mean, you name the band, we probably played with them a number of times.
Weren't there like road shows like where they'd have a group of bands play at a venue, and they'd each go up and play a few songs, and then, you know what I mean? Wasn't it like that back in the 60s?
Well, there were some shows like that where you do abbreviated sets rather than doing a whole hour. You might only do 20 minutes. The first outdoor pop festival was at the Santa Clara Fairgrounds, and that was the Dead, Quicksilver, the Youngbloods, Jefferson Airplane, Janis Joplin, Loading Zone, because back then it was Janis Joplin and the Loading Zone, us, and several other bands, and it went on for 3 days, and it was the first time that you had a really huge crowd outdoors like that. There were 40,000 people at that outdoor concert, and 40,000 back then was an enormous crowd. So, you know, and we played with the Dead all the time, and we probably performed with the Dead 30 times, and you know, probably played with Janis Joplin as many times. She was constant. I was 16 when we started playing with those guys, and she was hustling me all the time. I thought she was some old haggard woman. She was 22 years old, and I was 16, and she's coming up and trying to get me to go to bed with her after the gig, and all I could smell was the whiskey on her breath, because we'd share dressing rooms back in those days. You know, people didn't have their own dressing rooms, and you know, and I can't remember if she was drinking Jack Daniels or one of the other whiskeys, but she was constantly high and drunk all the time.
Yeah,
and I was this cute little kid, so she would always hustle me.
Yeah, there's a big difference in age there. You know, just 6 years, that's really nothing as you get older. But when you're young, that's a big difference.
Yeah, really huge.
So
But yes, we played with all kinds of bands all over the country. We did concerts with, like I said, you name it, we probably played with them.
That's great. So Janis, how did your mom get from the AOLA, or, you know, Advanced Organization, to opening up a celebrity center? How did that happen?
Yeah, my understanding of it was that she was made the case supervisor at the Advanced Organization, and having been the CO, she had her own separate files for the different celebrities, so that she knew who they were and took care of them and made sure they were given special service. And now with Captain Bill having taken over the AO, she was freed up, and that's when she wrote to Hubbard and said, I want to set up a booking office so that I can work with these different celebrities and drill them and work with them on communication and so forth, and so that they can actually go and do auditions without being nervous and nail their auditions. And that's when in April of, I think it was April 69, that was approved, and she was fired on a mission with Fred Pear to set up a booking office. And so she was at the OTL in Los Angeles, which was like the relay point. And she was working out of there as she set it up. And that's where she was working with Robbie and Geoff, the people. And she got Joyce Myers to come on and work with her. And she had to find a location. And this is the location that she found on 8th Street in Los Angeles. And that was an old supermarket. And then she had to try and get that fixed up. So she got volunteers, and she had Robbie and so forth. And then Robbie, when they moved over there, you were with her when she moved in there, right?
Well, we were around. We actually helped a little bit, but again, we were traveling. We were on the road, and you know, we were on our quote unquote mission, you know, Project People mission. And we would come into Celebrity Center, and we would bring in our reports. You know, we'd come off the road and we'd bring in our reports and file everything. And you know, it was, but we weren't there that often. And sometimes we were there doing shows and things like that. But
right.
But I think at the time I was on the briefing course at Asho, which was a few miles away, and so our time was consumed with studying when we were in town.
I was going to say, Robbie, you really dove in. I mean, just for our viewers to know, I mean, the amount of auditing and processing and training you did. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, you'd only been in for a few years, and you really moved on the bridge, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I don't know that I slept that much. I was busy all the time. I sent you that CS that Yvonne did, because Yvonne, when she was at the AO in the early days before she left and opened up Celebrity Center, was auditing quite a few celebrities, and I know that she had been done some sessions on Stephen Boyd, and there were a few other people. I'm not sure which ones they were that she had also audited, but if you look at that CS that I had, which was in Yvonne's handwriting, it's dated February of 1969.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, which is
that's when she was CSing.
Yeah, it was a few months before Celebrity Center. Yeah.
Yeah. And you were saying when she was CSing, that's when she started taking you into session as well, right?
Yeah, she did a few auditing sessions on me, which was kind of fun. And I was on OT6 at the time, and I hadn't completed OT6. When nobody really completes OT6. It's back then. OT6 is different back then than it is now. OT6 was when the completion of OT6, you had to be exterior with full perception. And,
yeah, very, very different to now.
Yeah. That was the EP. It was the EP.
Yeah.
That's right.
EP
and Phenomena. Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, Mom started with that old supermarket and had to fix it up. And she started to get people in, she would do poetry by candlelight.
Mm-hmm.
And people were bringing poetry. I was never there for it. I was on the Royal Scotsman, the Apollo, so I never was there for any of this beginning stuff. But Robbie was there in and out with doing his gigs and so forth. But slowly she started getting more celebrities in and involved, and some were already in, and she just moved them over and worked with them. But she would work with them to, sit them down and drill them on what they were going to do when they went for their audition. And then she'd do the poetry by candlelight or have different events in there. And I know some of the bands even had her with them when they toured, or when she toured, the bands went with her, and she would actually get up there in front of thousands of people and do what Scientology calls group processing.
Mm-hmm.
Robbie, did she do any of that with you?
Well, she didn't go out with us at all, but at some of the events, she was prominent at some of the events, like the huge one. I'm trying to think what year it was, at the Anaheim Convention Center. There was like 10,000 plus Scientologists there for those concerts, and she was on stage, and she introduced everybody, and she did some processing, which was just phenomenal. Chick and Stanley were there, and we played, and my brother played with Larry McNeely. It was kind of a host of really good Scientology musicians performing.
Right. Boy, Misha is on a roll today.
Yeah, she's outside right now. I keep muting my mic, but anyway, this is my dog. I have a husky, and she howls when people go by. But anyway, hey, I have a question for you, Robbie. You mentioned, did you go to the Apollo? Did you go to the flagship?
No, I didn't. I never went. Like I said, we were on the road about 250 days a year at that time, which is pretty substantial to be spending most of your time on the road traveling. My brother, after my brother left the band, he went to the Apollo, and he was in that horrible band, the Apollo Stars.
Apollo Stars.
My God.
He's in the Troubadours, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, that
Or-
might
no.
yeah. But
Yeah, and then he was in
Yeah,
the
the
country
reason I was
western-
asking, so Jeff must have met L. Ron Hubbard. You didn't.
yeah,
'cause
yeah. I
you
never
right?
met him. My only correspondence was that one letter. He knew who I was. I mean, we were the first and only, to my knowledge, and I don't know if this has happened since, but back then we were the first and only people that joined the Sea Org that were not full-time staff members.
Right. Well, and my mother would send up reports to Hubbard telling him, oh, I have this celebrity online's doing services, and this celebrity and this celebrity. And that's how I remember him, because she would send me little cassettes as a letter and just tell me who the different celebs were, or she'd send me photographs, which is why I had your picture on my wall, and I had Stephen Boyd on my wall, and
I remember after and I wish I had it, after we finished our training and got back, because our training, we were 2 weeks to do our AB check sheets, our able-bodied seamen's check sheets. And when we got back, there was a telex that Yvonne showed to me, because Hubbard sent a telex saying, well done, congratulations on your training, blah, blah, blah. I just wish I had that. Don't have that, though.
Right. Yeah.
Let me do this. Can I go ahead and show some of these photographs, Janis?
Yes.
Okay. So
yes.
This is your band again. This is another photograph of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
that's the one I had on my wall.
I can see why. They were good-looking young men, right?
Yeah.
All right. I was going to show some pictures of the inside of the Celebrity Center. Just rolling back. Sorry, 1 second here.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so is this the reception area?
Yes, that's the reception area.
Uh-huh.
Remember, you come in the front door, and I think this is to the left, and those walls were kind of like what was that potato sack kind of material that's painted over?
Yeah, I'm trying to orient myself. Did those move? And then there was a stage. There was a stage in the front as well.
Yeah, I think the stage was behind this.
I think so.
And all the chairs leading up to the stage, and that's where they did the poetry and the different events. And in that area was where they couldn't afford new carpet, so everyone went out to dumpsters and picked up carpet and brought the carpet in, and you can see the patchwork carpet there. This is my sister-in-law getting married to my brother, but she's walking down that stage area to go towards the stage, and on the patchwork carpet.
So they tried to they made it look artistic, I take it, for the time, right? In other words,
yes,
it was like a mosaic.
Wasn't hard in the 70s to make anything.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so Snooki and I were married on that same stage by Yvonne. She
right.
service, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And then there's your mom, Yvonne, right?
Yep.
Who else is Janis?
I don't know who those other people are, but she did a champagne event when she was opening Celebrity Centre. So I figured this picture must be it, because she was in her Sea Org uniform then. And then this is, after being open for a short while, this is her staff. She's there in the middle with the beads.
Yeah, so Joyce is on her right, and then on Joyce's right is Kay Romeo, who was the one that had the Santa Clara mission when we got in.
Okay.
And then to Yvonne's left, I don't know who that. I can't remember her name. To her left,
Bet. That's Bet Blundell.
And then there's Dale Benson to her left. And and Dale was the biggest jerk I think I've ever met in Scientology. he was supposed to be a director, but he was just a megalomaniac. And then on Dale's left is my brother,
right?
And then the young kid on my brother's left is Tristan Romeo, who's Kay's son.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
so
that's most of the front row. And there's Jeffrey Lewis on the left in the back.
In the back.
Yeah.
Yes. And in front of him in the white shirt and the vest, that's Janet Thompson.
Right. And I'm forgetting some other names.
Well, I recognize between my mother and Bet, that's Sam Lauria.
Right. Oh God. Yeah, I forgot that name for sure.
And behind him with the sunglasses, Margaret George.
Oh yeah. Margaret was another tough one, but boy, she protected Yvonne like nobody's business. You know, I think Margaret was the ethics officer for a while at Celebrity Centre. And
yes.
Yeah, she was like Yvonne's bodyguard almost. She looked after Yvonne. Yeah.
And there's Irene to my mother's right, our left, and
I say who Irene is.
Irene Dunleavy. She was married to Tony Dunleavy, and then when she was L. Ron Hubbard's personal communicator on the ship, she was married to Bill Howie, so Irene Howie. And many years later, she married
Jack Durman.
Jack Durman, who was doing all the purification rundown research and getting everything, all that stuff documented. But Irene, she was a Sea Org executive, and after being at Celebrity Centre, she went over and was at the ASHO, American Saint Hill Organization. And then she eventually left, and I hear she's living in Utah now.
Mm-hmm. Bill Howie was one of the early guys to blow, really early. You know, I knew him quite well, but he got out. God, he got out in early 70s, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, hey, along with, you remember Bill Deitch and Fran Deitch?
Yes, yeah, Bill and Fran.
Yeah, they got.
They were original Class 8s.
Yep, and Fran was original staff at the AO, and but they got out quite early too.
Hey, right. Janis, yes. Let me ask you a question, because I'm kind of blown away by these people like Irene that you mentioned. I mean, she was a powerhouse in Scientology and the Sea Organization, and she obviously started as, I didn't know she worked at Celebrity Centre. How did your mother put together the staff? I mean, because all those names you mentioned, a lot of them I know became big time executives in Scientology. So was that just her recruiting people, or did they take people from, how did it come together?
It was Yvonne recruiting people to work with her, and people just kind of flocked in, and she'd just have to say darling, and the next thing you know, these people are working for her, doing anything she asked.
That's true.
But at one point, nearly every executive in the Los Angeles area had been ripped off of Celebrity Centre. My mom had gotten them and trained them and worked with them, and they were all ripped off to man the rest of the orgs around Los Angeles.
Yeah. Did you, in one of those orders of the day, one of those early ones, she's talking about having to get staff, and she was requesting to get staff. And in one of them, she says, could I at least have Iris Reeves from the AAO? You remember that? Because she said she was an entertainer. It was tough. At the very beginning, it was tough, but then she started doing such a remarkable job bringing people into Celebrity Centre that I think it became easier for her to get staff.
And then Janis, eventually Celebrity Centre, I mean, we're talking a few years later, it was one of the largest organizations in Scientology, right? Staff-wise,
yes, she had built it. She had built it up to over 200 staff. Just delivering to the celebrities and working with celebrities and getting them in. And, it was funny. Spanky told me a story once Spanky Taylor, where one of the musicians, I think he'd been on tour with Michael Jackson. He came back from tour and he was just feeling terrible case-wise. And so Mom had said, asked for his folder to be gotten and for someone to get him in session. And that person comes back later and says, oh, sorry, but he doesn't have any money on account. And Mom was like, I didn't ask you to check how much money he had on account. I told you to get him in session. So to her, it was about the person. It wasn't about how much money can we get from that person before we can deliver to them.
Right.
And I think that's a big difference to today.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then go ahead, Janis. What's this?
This is the staff house, which was maybe 2 blocks away from the Celebrity Center on 8th Street, and it was on Lake Street. And some people had said it was where Charlie Chaplin lived. Someone else said he never lived there. I think it was Mitch that said he never lived there, Mitch Brisker. Yeah. But it had been owned by Charlie, and it was a great house. Robbie, had you ever been in this house?
I hadn't. I hadn't at all. I think my brother was. I think my brother might have been living there.
Yeah, I'd stayed there. Yeah, I'd stayed there a couple of times when I'd go on my leave of absence and go see Mom. But you go downstairs into the basement, and it was the crew dining room, and there was one little room off to the side, which was Yvonne's dining room, and celebrities would come down there and have dinner with her at nighttime, and then she would get up and introduce the celebrities to all the staff. And I remember being there actually when Heber's sister came to town, and Mom was introducing the sister to all the staff, and it was just a small group, tight-knit people. And the celebrities were all part of that group and treated as part of that group. Just like where Mitch Brisker brings up where he was to get off heroin, they brought him in to live at the Lake Street house with them so they could help him get off. But it wasn't a big separation and treating people with kid gloves. They were part of the group, just like you were.
Let me show. I'm just looking for some photos. I was going to show some of the celebrities and people hanging around there that in those days. That's Amanda Ambrose, the singer, right? Right there in the front.
Right. Yep.
And that's her, Amanda, and her daughter.
Amanda Strawn, yes. And
Bobby
Lines.
Yeah. He was an actor, the gentleman with the mustache and the leather jacket.
He's actually still in Scientology. I tried to communicate with him and he wouldn't because I'm declared. What were you going to say, Robbie?
Well, I spent a lot of time with Bobby in Clearwater, to Fort Harrison. And as I was in the process of routing out, just before that happened, Bobby and I were hanging out, and I was goofing on what was going on there because everything was so unprofessional and so Mickey Mouse. The whole hotel operation was a joke, and Bobby had done a fair amount of traveling as an actor, and the two of us were just completely making fun of how stupid everything was and how ethics was pretty much a joke. And I ended up routing out of Scientology and actually getting a refund on a bunch of cash that I had on account that I hadn't spent.
What year was that?
That was 1980.
1980?
Yeah, and Bobby got in trouble because I was being deemed antagonistic, and Bobby got in trouble for hanging out with me. And he kind of caved in. He caved in and just went along with whatever he was told. And I told him, you guys are kind of a con organization. And I was done. I was pretty much done with it because some of my friends had been relatively destroyed. Martin Samuel's life was almost destroyed by Scientology, and what they did to set him up and wreck him. That was, for me, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, because I had a few friends that had been declared, and I couldn't figure out. I don't know. The first one was Bob Harvey. Remember, Bob Harvey was on the original staff at the AO. He's on the first staff at the AO, and I had great rapport with Bob Harvey. He was a wonderful guy, and he started getting critical of what was going on, and it's like, no, this isn't cool. And so they just declared him. And Otto Roos was there chopping people's heads off at that time. And so I started questioning things. These people aren't suppressive persons. Well, they're not SPs. I know these people. And then when they finally destroyed Martin Samuels, that was kind of where I just drew the line and said, no, this organization's really messed up.
Yeah, you sound
Right,
like us.
right.
I mean, we eventually left in 1990 for similar reasons, where it just was like they were wiping out everything, that people that were good that we knew were not suppressive, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
But,
Oh, Martin Samuels was one of the biggest mission
biggest mission
holders.
holders.
He
Yeah.
had several different missions, and I'd met him, and he was a great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember the story of how he got set up?
No, but please tell.
Well, so he was, he had started in Oregon. What's the name of the school?
Sheridan, Delphi.
No, Delphi.
Yeah, Delphi.
Yep.
So
Delphi and Sheridan.
Delphian
so
school.
he started Delphi, and they convinced his wife that he was a suppressive, and Miscavige was behind all of this,
right?
And so they brought him into Clearwater to the Fort Harrison, and while he was at the Fort Harrison doing these intensives that they insisted that he pay tens of thousands of dollars for, his wife was liquidating everything, closing all their private accounts, and liquidating all of their real estate, putting everything in her name, and transferring everything in her name. And when she had completed all of that, everything, and he had nothing in his name, they actually canceled his credit cards. She canceled his credit cards. He had nothing but his clothes. And when he had nothing left in his name and they completed the whole transaction, they kicked him out on the street in front of Fort Harrison.
Wow.
He had a few dollars in his wallet and nothing else. His credit cards weren't valid. And I mean, it was really disgusting what they did to Martin. And
yeah, we're going to tell some more stories about that here in the future. Let me go ahead and just roll through back in the day when it was a little happier, happier times, right? That's Chick.
Yeah, and Gail.
Chicory on the left, and Gail Moran, his wife, on the right. Who's in the middle?
Chris Potter. She was married to Billy Potter, the sax player on the Apollo Stars.
Yeah.
It's Dick Glass, the eloquent elephant.
Yep.
Who we must have done a dozen performances with him at Celebrity Center.
And he also joined the Sea Org and used to do recruitment missions. And I remember him going around the different orgs doing recruitment missions.
That's Jim McMahon.
This guy looks familiar. I don't know,
It's Jim McMahon, the actor. Never got huge. There's Mario Fenninger.
Yeah, he was a classical pianist. Peggy Lipton.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you know Peggy?
I met Peggy, but not until after I left Scientology. I was at a city yoga retreat in the Catskills in New York, and with Guru Mai in 1985, and Peggy she left Scientology and became a huge devotee of Guru Mai, which was really interesting.
Did she know you? Did you guys talk about we were in Scientology or no?
A little bit, but probably both glad to be out and not be discussing
it.
And there's Stephen Boyd.
Yeah, very sweet man, really sweet man. He had a really close relationship with Yvonne, and when he died so early, he was so young when he died. And
well, and for our younger viewers, Stephen Boyd was in the biggest movie of all time.
Ben-Hur.
Jaws came out, called Ben-Hur, with Charlton Heston, and he played the Roman emperor who was the friend of Charlton Heston's character, and then they became enemies. Yeah. But it's a massive movie. Ben-Hur was the largest movie of all time up until Jaws came out in '75 or whatever.
I think it might have been the first movie to be over 3 hours too.
Yeah, and it's still an incredible movie to this day.
Yeah,
they always show it at Easter time and everything. It was really, really good. But anyway, so he was in, and then he died young, right? Like of a heart attack.
He did.
Yeah, and everybody was shocked when it happened.
Was he still a Scientologist when that happened?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and then who's this?
So that's my band Rocking Horse, with Yvonne, and this is around 1974. So this is taken in front of Celebrity Center on Franklin Street, the big Celebrity Centre.
Yeah.
And
Oh, okay.
yeah, and we had just completed our first album with RCA Records, and we were doing a lot of Scientology gigs. It was real interesting because all the other guys in the band were actively getting auditing and on course, and I was on a hiatus. My experience when we routed out of the Sea Org in 1972, people, it was kind of a weird deal because back then, when you'd route out of the Sea Org, you'd have freeloaders debt, and you'd have to go through ethics conditions. And I sat down with Yvonne and I said, it's just not working. And Yvonne just smoothed the whole path. The whole band routed out of the Sea Org with nothing. There wasn't a peep. We didn't have to do anything. It was all because Yvonne just rolled the whole thing out and smoothed everything out. Anything that had happened got swept under the carpet by Yvonne, and just we didn't have to get hassled by anybody. It was pretty amazing what she did, and she stuck her neck out a little bit to do that for us.
Now, this is your new band, Rocking Horse. Were you guys all Scientologists too, or no?
Yeah, what had happened is people never broke up. Different people left the band. And as one member would leave, I would replace it with another member. And the first one that came in was we lost our singer, and I brought Daniel Dick in, who's on Yvonne's left, as our singer. And then Daniel had played with Lenny Macaluso, who was to Daniel's left in another group, and he brought him in. And when Lenny came in the band, I got Lenny into Scientology. And Lenny had been on drugs and had a real sordid past, and I got him in. And then Lenny knew the keyboard player on my right, Chuck Osteen, who's still in Scientology, and so is Daniel Dick. And so he came in.
Just for our viewers to know, Robbie is the one in the turquoise tank top and the white pants with the rainbows on them.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
hand painted.
Yeah, that I painted. And so Chuck came in, and I got Chuck in, and then Pug Baker, who's on the far right next to Lenny, he came in, and we got him in, and the whole band was in Scientology, and I'm the only one that wasn't doing any courses or auditing at that time, because I had already gone up the grade chart and part of the training chart, and because of the experience I had being in the Sea Org and then routing out, at the time I still believed in Hubbard and I still believed in the technology, but the organization was a total turnoff to me at that point. And so I got these guys in, and I got them all getting auditing and training, but I wasn't doing anything myself. And somehow I got away with that, which until 1980 when I decided to go to Clearwater. But that was after the band had already disbanded.
Right. Well, Yvonne let you off the hook.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, who's this in these pictures here?
That's Milton and Heber. And Yvonne,
left to right is Heber. Heber's the one on the left, yeah.
And then Milton Casales, right? That's Milton, isn't it?
Yeah, he's the famous director.
Yvonne, and that looks like Bobby Lyons on the right.
It is.
Yeah, and I don't know who the guy kneeling is.
Pakwiltari.
Oh God, of course. Okay.
Yeah.
Another name, another historic name I forgot.
Yeah, and of course that was Yvonne in between Milton and Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is you guys went down on the ship you were talking about earlier, right, Janis? The Excalibur, right? Is that what the ship?
Yeah, Mom went down to the Excalibur with a bunch of staff from Celebrity Centre and some celebrities. And in this picture, that's Bobby Lyons with her.
Yeah, that was a great trip. I was on that trip, and it was it was really funny. Milton Casales. So that's Yvonne and me in the goofy hat with Spanky Taylor. And this is at the beginning. This is at the beginning before in Long Beach, before this trip took off. And it was kind of an overcast day. And we went out most of these people had never spent any time on the ocean. I had done my my training, and I was with Alan Long on the Aries, and Alan had me on the helm most of the time. Well, on this trip, there's Milton right there, Milton Casales. Milton was made the quote unquote honorary captain for that trip. He was on the bridge and Alan Long was the actual captain of the boat at that time. And so what happened is we got into the water, and there was this series of consistent waves, just constant waves coming in. And the boat was just going through this major rocking. And by the time the boat had been out about an hour, almost everybody on the boat was seasick. It was just hilarious. And I'm walking around with Chuck, and Chuck, our keyboard player, and he's starting to get seasick. And I said, let's go up in the crow's nest. And the boat's rocking, so you're up in the crow's nest about three or four stories up. And as it rocks, you're just hanging on, and you're over the water about 4 stories, 40, 50 feet above the water. And I kept him from getting seasick. And then I went down onto the bridge, and the Sea Org member who was on the helm, he was vomiting into a coffee can. and Milton was down on the main bridge with Alan, and Milton was seasick, and he was vomiting, and everybody else is down below vomiting. And Alan said, hey, do you want to take the helm? Because I was one of the few people on the whole ship that wasn't seasick. I said, sure, but I've never been on anything this big before. And he said, you can do it. Don't worry about it. So I actually was on the helm for most of the trip. I was on the helm of that thing because everybody else was seasick.
Do you remember, were you like going from Long Beach up to San Francisco, or where were you going?
No, it was not. It was a day trip. We were
out in the ocean and back.
Yeah, we went. I don't even remember where we went, but we were out in the water where the
I made a comment to you earlier, Robbie, that these photographs show that you guys were having fun. It seemed like there was fun times, you know what I mean? Not so serious.
Yeah, anything connected to Celebrity Centre, Yvonne made sure it was fun for everybody, I think.
Fabulous.
Well, Mom used to have a saying, if it's not fun, it's not Scientology.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's too bad that got lost.
Yeah.
Well, we've reached our hour. We're going to end it here, and then of course we'll have Robbie. We'll do another show with you and go through the rest of the photos and tell some more stories and everything. But I wanted to thank you for being here, Robbie, and same Janis, right?
Yes, yes.
My pleasure. I can't believe I remember all those Scientology terms. I haven't thought about them in so many years.
It comes back.
Yeah.
The more you talk about it, it's like it comes back.
Yeah.
And you've been out since 1980, right? You did.
Well, it's real interesting, real quick. So I did nothing between 72 and 80. I still consider myself a Scientologist, but I did no trading or auditing. And then in 1980, I went to Flag after 8 years in the business world, and everything looked different to me, and the whole thing just exposed itself. So I only lasted a couple of months after I went to Clearwater. So.
Right.
Okay, well, anyway, before I end off, I just want to go through some business for our viewers here. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel. Just go over there and click on the subscribe button. We really appreciate it. It helps get the message out to other people. And also, if you've got any questions about what we've talked about, ask in the comment sections down below. And Janis and I check them all the time, and we'd be happy to answer. And then, Janis, what's the other thing that we would like everybody to do?
Rock slam the like button.
That's right. Rock slam that like button, because that also helps get our message out to everybody. And then finally, if you'd like to donate to us, you can buy us a coffee. Down in the description of the channel, there's a link where you can buy us a coffee, and that any donation is appreciated. We really, really do appreciate that, as I was mentioning.
Yeah.
And we will have Robbie back on again soon, right, Janis?
Yes, we will. We'll just work it out and get it scheduled. And I've enjoyed this, Robbie. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Now, Robbie, hold on. I'm going to end the video and then stay on, okay? Because we're going to talk to you afterwards. All right.
okay. Sure.
All right. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.
Bye.